to Learn Lounge. We hope you've been watching some of the incredible talks we've had so far from some incredible speakers, including international explorer Toby Story-Hugh, wildlife cinematographer Sophie Darlington, and motivational speaker Mr. Beasy, and many more. Now, if you missed any of those, don't worry, because you can catch up via the Learn Lounge website, which is learn.springpod.co.uk. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, Learn Lounge is a new series by Springpod where we bring inspirational careers talks and stories directly to help you forge your own paths. You'll get first-hand useful career insights from influencers, educators, and industry experts. My name's Hope, and I'll be hosting this afternoon's session. Just a couple of things before we get started today. The talk should last around 40 to 45 minutes. Please do ask questions using that Q&A function. Remember to tag us on social media using the hashtag LearnLounge. And just please note as well that we are raising money for the Children's Trust, so please do donate. Today, we are joined by Verity Park, a talent manager for Gleam Futures. Verity provides 360 management to some of the UK's top digital talent. She helps them manage their long-time brand relationships with some of the world's biggest brands, helping them to expand their career to a mainstream media. She also managed and conceptualized the launch of Beverly's sustainable style brand, Tala, which is in under 1 year amassed a loyal following of over 220,000 people and a total sales of over £4.5 million. It's a pleasure to have her here sharing her specialist knowledge. Verity, welcome to Learn Lounge.
Thank you for having me.
Well, lovely to have you here. And it's such an interesting career that you're going to be telling us about today that I feel like has definitely grown in the amount of people who want to do this now.
Yeah.
So you're a talent manager. Please can you tell us about your journey to get to where you are now?
Yeah, of course. So I guess I always knew I wanted to work in kind of media and entertainment. So during school and kind of before uni, I made sure that I got as much work experience as I possibly could. I guess it's kind of worth saying I probably wasn't that fussy about the work experience that I did. I just I recognized the value of transferable skills. So I did social media for an accountancy firm. I did kind of PR and comms for a building company, which is probably worth saying that wasn't like my dream job, but I knew those transferable skills would come in handy when I was kind of applying for jobs down the line. And then after uni, I secured a job in sales and marketing in Leeds. And I worked there for a year. And at that point, I moved down to London and I secured my job at Gleam. And that was, I think, just under 3 years ago now, which is amazing to think because, you know, so much can happen in that time. So, yeah.
What did you study at university?
English literature and theatre, which is a bit random.
Has that degree helped you in order where you are now, or do you feel like it didn't really matter what you chose to study at university?
It has in kind of a lot of ways, in the sense that like I definitely gained a lot of confidence through the theatre side of things, and I gained like analytical skills through the literature side of things. But I often get kind of questions about like, do I need to do kind of advertising or marketing at school or uni to be able to get a job in this industry? And like, no, you don't need to, as long as you kind of have like a passion for the industry and an understanding of what the industry is all about. You can definitely kind of make your way into the industry without those kind of those exact topics.
So your kind of path into it was quite academic, would you say?
Potentially. Not really. I think probably the reason I got my job at Gleam ultimately was because I'd worked in lots of different places and kind of garnered lots of different bits of experience. And like going back to what I said, I was never that fussy. Like I would have just kind of valued any work experience or any opportunities that I was given.
Yeah. And why talent management?
Oh,
That's a tricky question, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I've always been so interested in the industry, and really the industry has only been around for the last 10 years, really. So kind of as I was finishing uni, I just started to noticing all these kind of brand partnerships that are happening, and the rise of these big talent or social media profiles and like essentially personal brands. And I just find them absolutely fascinating, and kind of the tangible kind of reaction brands can get from working with the talent I just found so interesting. So I think that, and the fact that it's kind of really fast paced and always evolving, always changing.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that a lot of people maybe are aspiring to be influencers now as well. So there's probably going to be more growth as time goes on. From
Yeah.
outsiders, I think talent management appears to be very glamorous. Is that true?
I guess it's worth saying we're really lucky to experience some of the glamour that does kind of go on in the industry. But there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, and the job is really like always on. So if you're kind of looking for a sign off at 5 job, that's not what this is. But that's one of the things that I love about it.
So can you talk us through like a rough day? Obviously lockdown now is making things a bit different, I'm sure. But what would be a usual day for you in this role?
People always ask me this question, and it's honestly really hard to say the exact answer, because genuinely, again, one of the things I love about the role is that it's so varied. But some of the things that we do is we'll like negotiate brand partnerships, negotiate contracts, looking out for publishing opportunities for our talent, looking out for licensing opportunities for talent. And essentially my job is to oversee their strategy and their personal brand, and come up with that strategy and personal and kind of career navigation and make sure that's happening. So really day to day, I'm kind of trying to achieve smaller goals to achieve that bigger goal of their strategy.
And in terms of management, like how much control do you have over what the influencers and the talent do? Or is it kind of a collaborative approach?
It's very collaborative. Ultimately, talent managers and talent end up being very close friends, like especially like with my talent, for example, I know them all like the back of my hand, like I trust them, they trust me. So it's a very, very, very collaborative approach. That being said, we are there to, like, as Gleam, we're there to offer guidance and advice based on kind of our experience in the industry. And, you know, they can choose to take that or not, but ultimately it is kind of their decision. They have complete control, but you're normally aligned on the kind of long-term vision and strategy. So from my experience of it, the process is quite smooth.
And I suppose communication skills come in there massively, because do you have to have meetings where you actually discuss, okay, what kind of vision do you have going forward? And then you kind of have to decide for the types of brands and stuff to do with them.
Yeah, well, normally what happens is the talent manager will sit down and they'll kind of write a career strategy for the individual talent. And that's kind of really trend and like research based. And then we'll sit down, we'll bring the talent in, and we'll have a day, we'll hash it all out, we'll sit down together, and they'll be like, this is what I love, this is what I want to do. And then from that, the talent manager will take away a load of goals and essentially aims for the end of the year that they want to achieve.
And how many people do you manage under you?
So I personally manage 5 talent, and it's kind of a team of 2 really that per 5 talent, generally speaking, at Gleam. But then obviously we kind of have our publishing team, we have our finance team, we have our legal team, we have kind of the senior leadership team who look over all the brand strategies that the talent managers are creating. So really there is kind of a big team working on the talent. But day to day, it's kind of, I'll be managing 5.
And is that a normal number for everyone at Gleam?
Yeah, pretty much. In some cases where there's kind of really high profile talent that are getting a significant amount of inbound requests, then we might then have a larger team.
Okay, so it wouldn't be that the talent manager would just have less clients. It would be that you'd have more talent managers to help with that client.
No, it kind of works in both ways. Either you have a big team with kind of an assistant, a brand partnerships manager, etc., or you kind of have a talent manager working on one talent. It's quite flexible. It's kind of like whatever will work for the talent and Gleam.
It's every talent is kind of different in terms of how you're going to handle them.
Yeah.
And talking about handling different talent, have you ever had anyone who's just been like really difficult to work with? And if you have, don't need to give details of who, but how have you as a talent manager dealt with that situation?
I feel like this isn't a very good answer. I'm not giving you any juicy details, but I haven't actually had kind of a situation where I've had any difficult conversations with my talent specifically. We have kind of a really good relationship. They trust me, they trust my opinion, they respect my time. So yeah, I don't have any juicy examples to give, I'm afraid.
If that was to happen though, what do you think? How do you think you would handle that situation? What skills would you need?
If someone was in what situation?
You had different opinion on which direction to go in, or you just had someone who was maybe not as motivated as they potentially could be to help you?
Yeah, I think if they're kind of wanting to go in a different direction, I think the important thing is to lead with stats and research. So why do you think that you should go in this direction, and why do they think they should go in that direction? Sit down and have a conversation with them and say, these are my reasons for thinking, and this is the research that we've done, and we believe this is the best route forward, and kind of lay it out with lots of evidence. And then if they still choose that that's not the right option for them, then that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, then you just go back to the drawing board and think of something else. And in terms of the talent that you manage, do you choose the clients that you have, or are they allocated to you, and how does that work?
So it's kind of really, again, like a really collaborative process. With Grace, for example, in my interview at Gleam, my first interview at Gleam, I was asked who did I think was a potential talent with a lot of potential, and like who I thought would have a really exciting career. And I said Grace at that point. That was 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago now. And so then obviously when Gleam took her on, it made sense for her to be allocated to me. But really, like, it's kind of based on relevant experience. Like, if a talent really has a massive desire to build a brand, then they'd go to a talent manager with experience in building brands. And it is kind of, case by case.
And with Grace Beverly, who is a huge influencer and a successful businesswoman now, what qualities did she show at that time when you first recommended her or said, yes, I think she'd be really good? What was it that stood out for you?
I think here it's probably worth saying, because I get a lot of questions about, like, what is the threshold? Like, why would you, what's the follower threshold? But we're not looking for numbers. So it's not kind of, oh, they've got 500,000 followers, we can sign them. It's about like a USP and potential and expertise and personality. And Grace is a perfect example of someone who had bags of personality. She had a really clear USP in that she was really kind of moral and ethical, and she had interest in sustainability, and she spoke about that quite openly, and she was very happy to speak about that. So I think in terms of her personality, I thought that was really interesting. Also at the time, she had already launched her first business, so she clearly had appetite and interest in that kind of area. So I found that really exciting. So it really depends on a case by case, but it's definitely not to do with kind of numbers alone.
And for people who are watching who may not know what USP is, can you please explain that and maybe explain why that is important if you want to be an influencer?
Yeah, of course. So that means unique selling point, which essentially just means something which is unique to you. So something you're doing which is a little bit different to what everyone else is doing.
It's quite interesting that the numbers don't really matter, because I feel like a lot of people have a big pressure to have a large following for opportunities to arise. So that is quite interesting that you're saying that doesn't really...
Yeah, and for us, it's kind of about building long-term careers for them. So we're really looking for something unique that we can build on for them.
Yeah.
So it's more about kind of the expertise that we can add, where I say that.
And in terms of the brands that you work with in relation to talent management, do they approach you guys at Gleam, or do you have to go out and reach out to them and say, hey, look, I've got this person, they'd be really good at this, blah, 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 blah. How does that work?
So that I would probably say is 50-50. Gleam is very well established in the industry. So there are kind of very few briefs that don't come knocking at our door. However, that doesn't mean that we don't spend a lot of time reaching out to clients, getting to know them, introducing our talent to them, and just building relationships. And because really what we seek to do is, rather than a brand coming to us with a brief, we like to kind of work really collaboratively with a brand and be proactive to build the relationship with them, as opposed to them coming to us with an idea and slotting talent in.
So would that work, like in terms of meeting with those brands, would you go along with your clients and have like a business meeting and all talk about it together? Is that how that goes?
Yeah, exactly. So if there's if one of the talent is really interested in the brand and is using them really organically and loves them naturally anyway, then we might kind of reach out to the brand partner and and build a relationship with them.
Cool. And then going back to your job, do you, as part of being a talent manager, do you travel a lot? And if so, is there room to be a talent manager in different places, like around the world, or managing people globally?
So there are two parts to that question. So the first part, do I travel? I have been very lucky to travel with work, really with our job. If we're kind of needed on location, then we'll be there to make sure kind of everything's running smoothly and the brand's kind of adhering to what we've agreed and all of those sorts of things, just making sure that the talent's comfortable. And the second part was, can you do this globally? Yes, you can. There's lots of different territories where influencer marketing, whatever you want to call it, is actually booming even more so than the UK. But in terms of the UK, another question I always get is, do you need to be in London for talent management? And I found personally that the jobs that I would want are based in London. But that's not to say that there's kind of there's no ability to work for a talent company in a place other than London.
I mean, because Manchester is like a big media hub now as well, so I suppose there's more opportunities popping up there as well.
Exactly. There's definitely opportunities. It's kind of just from my personal perspective, the jobs that I want were in London.
And you spoke earlier about how the job is like forever evolving and no day is the same. With new like social network platforms, for example, TikTok, which has recently boomed, how does that impact your job? And does that mean there's more opportunity to find really good people to take on board?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we work really closely with TikTok, so we kind of knew that was coming before it all happened. And we'd been kind of building and encouraging our talent to start their TikTok profiles and put a bit of effort into creating content or original content for TikTok. So from our perspective, we find it really exciting. And it's the whole kind of, ultimately, people care about the talent's personalities. They could be reading about the talent in a magazine, they could be hearing about them on YouTube or on TikTok or on Instagram or on Snapchat or wherever. It's really the talent that they're looking to see. It doesn't matter to them what platform they're on. So really it's about us working directly with the platforms to make sure that they're kind of making the most out of each individual one.
And in terms of TikTok and things, it's not always easy to create content and have original ideas. So do you ever help your clients to come up with ideas? Do you ever say, oh, maybe you could do this?
Yeah. So if talent are struggling with coming up with kind of original ideas, we'll either kind of brainstorm with them like together, or either sometimes we do like team brainstorms with the rest of the Gleam team, which are really useful because then you get kind of insight from lots of different managers, and you can do that with talent as well. So yeah, we work really closely with talent to help with content.
In a lot of industries as well, networking is a key thing. I mean, in my industry, it's really helped me in terms of meeting different people. Is that something you would recommend that people do if they want to do a career?
Yes, definitely. So I feel like it can take a little bit of time to find your way with this, and it can be really frightening. Networking can seem really frightening at first. Um, but in terms of kind of, I guess, tips that might be useful for networking, I would just say, firstly, know your worth. No matter kind of how junior or senior you are, your opinion matters. So go into the conversation with confidence. And then I'd also say it's worthwhile knowing what you're trying to get out of the conversation when you're networking. So do you just want to get to know them better, or are you interested in kind of telling them about a product or service that you offer? And just whatever your kind of aim is for that conversation, just have it in mind. And then I find kind of preparation before networking also really useful. It sounds a bit of an overkill, but it's simpler than it sounds. So like, based on what you're trying to achieve, so let's say you're trying to get to know them a little bit better, have some questions in mind, that like small talk questions that you might just ask them to make yourself feel a little bit more comfortable. And if you want to kind of tell them about something you're doing, maybe have some stats and figures in mind that you can tell them about and impress them with. And I feel like doing all of those things kind of just gives you that edge of confidence that you might need when it's sometimes a little bit scary.
And preparation always makes you feel more confident anyway, because you feel like you actually know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Is there any like maybe websites or anything where you would recommend finding out about networking events for people who might want to go along?
I actually don't go on specific networking like websites. Typically networking events, and the networking I mean is coming through contacts that I meet, and just general like events put on by work or events that I'm emailed about. So in terms of specific networking websites, I'm probably not best placed to advise.
It's probably just a case of, if you start going to one, if you find out about one, the rest will kind of email you about going to them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you'll be put on lots of email lists.
And if people aren't able to maybe travel to go to a networking event, are websites like LinkedIn, have you found those helpful for making those connections?
Yeah, I love LinkedIn. I think it's amazing. It's such a great platform, and I do think it's really undervalued. I think especially kind of it's worth shouting about things that you're doing on there as well. And yeah, and like especially now, kind of in this current climate where people are more kind of on at home more regularly, everyone's working from home. It's definitely worth reaching out to people who have careers that you're interested in on LinkedIn, because you never know where that connection might lead you.
Exactly. And what's the worst thing that can happen if you contact someone? They just might not reply.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. In terms of lockdown, I mean, we spoke about people being stuck in their homes at the moment. Is there anything that you can recommend our viewers maybe try and do now that can help them if they want to be a talent manager in the future? And they probably feel like, I can't do anything right now. I can't do work experience.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I'd probably say is don't worry too much. And I know that's so easy to say, but like ultimately we're in a global pandemic and everyone is going to be going through in the same situation as you. So first of all, try not to worry too much. But there are things that you can do. I would try and get ahead by making a list of the companies you might want to work for, and making a spreadsheet of the industries that you might want to go into and the jobs you might want to go into. And yeah, reaching out to people on LinkedIn is always good. And also reading up, like use this time if you're worried about it to read up on the industry that you're interested in, because there's so much stuff that you can get online. Read up on relevant press, and that really helps, because having that kind of passion and knowledge is what it's all about.
And I mean, maybe you could even look at influencers who are doing certain things, and you can maybe decipher what's successful and what's working.
Yeah.
And talking about that, in terms of a talent manager for you, what do you put in place to help clients grow their following and become more successful?
So again, I think it's worth me saying here that it's not numbers that we're interested in. We're interested in kind of potency and what they're doing that's a bit different. So that's not our first kind of thing that we kind of work on with talent. But we absolutely do help them with that, and we work very closely with Instagram and Facebook to help them achieve kind of growth. In terms of top tips, I would probably say posting regularly is really important. We scroll the length of Big Ben on our phones every day, which is crazy. So you've got to post regularly to get in there amongst the noise. Also, using all of the different options on Instagram. So making sure you're kind of posting Instagram TV on grid, on video. You're using the poll feature, you're using all the different features that they offer to like add personality to your content. And then also video content's really important. So making sure that you're posting video, it can be a little bit scary, but people come to Instagram for interest and they stay for personality. And the only place you're really going to get your personality across on Instagram is via video.
Yeah. And if you do it once, you'll get used to it. I found that myself. In terms of, we spoke earlier a little bit about Grace Beverly, who is a person you've been working with for a while, hugely successful now, who you had a very hands-on input, I think, on making Tala her brand for clothing. Yeah. Tell us about that, because that's a really exciting opportunity that you had there, and it's really paid off.
Yeah, so just a bit about Tala.
Talk us through that journey, how that came about, and what have you learned from doing that?
So many things. So we signed Grace 3 years ago now, and we basically saw an opportunity there to build an sustainable activewear brand alongside her, which we must have started doing about 2 years ago now, or something along those lines. And it was all snowballed so quickly, but really we just wanted to find a gap in the market. Really, there was a gap in the market for a sustainable activewear brand, or ultimately a sustainable brand which was fashionable. And we spotted that gap, and we started making movements towards getting samples that we liked. It took us ages to find samples that we liked, or designs in that material that we liked, because at the time, and it's come on leaps and bounds now, it was so difficult to find sustainable materials that were kind of easily made into the designs that we wanted. So it took us so long to like create that first collection. And then we basically branded the whole brand together, and put up a launch strategy and a marketing strategy for the brand. We launched it and it sold out within like 10 minutes. It was more successful than we could have even anticipated. And at this stage, it was kind of, I was Grace's talent manager, but I was kind of behaving as like a customer service manager or a HR manager, or doing all these sorts of things for this brand, because it snowballed so much quicker than we could have imagined, which is obviously an amazing problem to have. Yeah. So now we've had our first birthday. We've grossed £6.5 million worth of sales, which is phenomenal. And it's so exciting, and it makes me feel so passionate, because we've been able to show kind of the fast fashion brands, actually, people have the power to vote with their money, and they can kind of there is a sustainable option for them there now. It's really exciting that it feels like we've made a bit of a mark in our first year. We've saved something like 3.5 million litres of water over people buying like non-recycled equivalents. And we've also saved like 70,000 bottles of 70,000 bottles from going to landfill, because we weave them into our clothes. So yeah, there's some amazing stats which we're really proud of.
I was going to say to you, what kind of materials are we talking? But obviously you're talking about like plastic recycled bottles and things. What other sustainable materials are included?
It's either kind of products that have been recycled and the materials are going to landfill, so like basically waste materials, or which we then kind of break down and build into another material, or plastic bottles. And our factory is amazing. Like when you go there, you can see the whole process of how they break down each individual old material into like a new yarn. It's crazy.
And is that something that, if you're going into a talent management role, is that the kind of hands-on like approach that everyone would experience, or is that quite rare that you've been able to do that?
Certainly at Gleam, that is kind of the service that we offer. And yeah, I think definitely from kind of talent managers that I know, you do feel really passionate about it, and whatever you're doing, like you genuinely care about progressing the careers of the talent. So it does tend to be very hands-on. But yeah, I don't think anybody would have it any other way.
No, it's amazing, and there's so many things that you've achieved from doing that. Do you now have more passion for fashion? That sounds really cheesy. Are you like, oh my God, I'd love to do that again now?
I definitely have more passion for sustainable fashion.
Yeah.
Sorry. And yeah, I find the space so exciting. Like because obviously, like I was saying, consumers now have the power to vote with their money and say, like, this is what we want. We want sustainable fashion, which means that the innovation of sustainable fabrics is coming on so quickly, which means that now we can go to the factory and they can say, this is the new fabric that we've got in. It's made of whatever it might be, ocean plastics, let's say. And we can then say, amazing, we're going to make this collection out of it and design it there and then. So makes me feel really excited.
And in terms of the marketing and stuff like that, marketing strategies you spoke about and really like shouting about that brand, how do you go about that?
Oh, well, we are a digital first brand. So essentially we mainly did most of our advertising via digital. But again, it goes back to that thing about the USP, so the unique selling point. We wanted to be really transparent about our offering. So we wanted to be clear about how much water you saved by buying our leggings over a pair of non-recycled leggings, and how many plastic water bottles you saved by buying our trackies over non-recycled trackies. So it's getting that messaging bang on before you kind of launch any social campaign. That is the most important thing. But yeah, in terms of our following, we've now kind of got a unique, obviously Grace's audience was an amazing kind of head start. But we do now have a unique following for Tala as well. And it's great to see that kind of community build. It's all really about community building, and asking your following what they want. Like a lot of what we've been doing during lockdown is just being really open and honest with our audience and saying, what do you want to see from us? Because we don't want to be bombarding you with stuff that you don't want to see. And what do you want? What items do you want us to release? And because we're in like a small, quite agile position, we're able to do that. So I think if you can do that with your audience, do, because it's really unique.
Well, it's like you're collaborating with the audience.
Exactly.
And if you're giving them what they want, then obviously it will be successful, which is brilliant. We'll go on to the Q&A in a moment. Just wanted to ask one kind of big question, really. What's the best bit of advice you can give to any of our young viewers who are watching this, who want to go along the route of having a career as a talent manager?
I would say you've got to know the industry, and sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I think this is probably the key thing. And this is like a really inexpensive thing that you can do, just reading up about the industry, following people on Instagram, and having a look at like, what brands do you think are doing brand marketing, like influencer marketing well? Why do you think that? What's your opinion on it? Just being aware of kind of a wide range of industry press and titles, and making sure that you're well read. I think that's the most inexpensive, useful thing that you can do, because that kind of means it doesn't matter whether you have a degree or what your degree's in. If you do have a degree, it's more something you can do yourself.
Yeah, and it makes it more personal because you'll naturally gravitate to what you're interested in. So it will help you figure it out, won't it?
Exactly.
Thank you so much for those incredible insights so far. I'm sure there's more to come because we're going to go on to the Q&A now. Anyone who's asked a question so far, thank you. We'll go through them. Anyone else who hasn't asked one or wants to ask another, keep them coming. So let's start with this one here. I've got, do Gleam give any work experience that anyone can apply for?
So we don't have any at the moment, but there are sometimes opportunities that do come up. But it's a case of keeping an eye on our website. We have a careers section. So yeah, just keep an eye on that, and anything that does come up will be put on there. Also, if you follow us on socials, there'll be information there.
Brilliant. So there is opportunity to do that.
There has been in the past. I think like there may well be in the future. I wouldn't want to kind of guarantee it. But certainly if you keep an eye on socials, that's where the information will be if the opportunity does come about.
Brilliant, thank you. And another one here about work experience as well. I know you said that when you were kind of at school or about to go to university, you dipped your toe in like a lot of different things because you didn't mind what you were doing as long as it was experience. But someone has said here, how did you find work experience?
I found it absolutely terrifying. It's like, I think it's like completely normal to be nervous, like being thrown into that business environment when you're not used to that. You're used to being at school or with your family or with your friends. It can be really scary, but I think my biggest tip is just like faking confidence. Just pretend you're confident, and it may not feel like it's working, but it'll probably be appearing like it is to other people.
And you'll fool yourself into feeling confident.
Exactly.
And how would you go about finding those opportunities in the first place?
Oh, I just used to email out so many people. And also I got my job at Leeds just by following PR companies at Leeds. I followed them on Twitter, I followed them on Instagram, and I was followed them on LinkedIn, and any opportunities that they put up, I would just apply for. So yeah, really making sure you're following all companies you're interested in across all platforms, because normally that's where they'll put out any information on work experience that they're offering.
Brilliant. Social media is the way to go, isn't it, to find these types of opportunities?
Yeah.
I've got a question here. I mean, we touched on networking. Someone said, how do you make connections for a job in talent management at a young age?
Specifically for a job in talent management, again, it would be a case of first of all trying to get that work experience, and second of all reaching out to them on LinkedIn. Like, LinkedIn is literally the best platform. I can't express that enough, and it offers you kind of direct access to people who may or may not reply, but if you kind of initially reach out, and even reaching out to, don't feel like, be careful who you're reaching out to, because you could reach out to someone who's more junior at a business that you're interested in and just kind of get a little bit of career advice from them. And so yeah, don't worry too much about using LinkedIn to reach out to people.
You don't need to reach out and say, have you got a job? You can just say, can we arrange a phone call?
Exactly. And like, I try to have as many kind of calls with people as I can, because I know how difficult that it can be. And yeah, I get lots of those sorts of emails, and I don't find them a nuisance at all. So please do reach out to people.
And it will give you confidence when you go to those networking events as well, if you've got used to reaching out to people.
Absolutely.
This question applies more to Gleam, where you're at the moment. So what is the best way to get a job at Gleam?
At Gleam specifically, your best bet is to, sorry, I'm repeating myself, but keep an eye on that careers website, because for me it just so happened that it was the right place, right time, and I was moving to London and this job opening became available, and it was perfect for my experience. So that is the best thing to do. Keep an eye on our socials, and then in terms of interviewing, I guess maybe that would be useful in terms of giving a few tips if you do get an interview.
Someone has asked what was the interview process like for your job, so that would be beneficial.
Yeah, so I had 3 interviews. I had one initial one with the person who would have been my manager at the time. Then I had a second one with Lucy Loveridge, who is global head of talent, and then I had a third one with Dom, who's our CEO. And I mean, the process was obviously really scary because I really desperately wanted the job. But I think I just tried to, like I said, tried to fake it till I make it. And then my favorite interview tip, which sounds a little bit creepy, but I'm just going to go for it. I always make sure to stalk people on LinkedIn before I meet them. Yeah. And what I'm looking for is anything that they have in common with me at all. So if they've studied drama or English at uni, if they went to Leeds Uni, if they live anywhere near me, if they once, like, you know, if there's any connection I can get there, I will bank that. And then when I go in, I'll just try and kind of drop into conversation, something along those lines. And it just makes you feel more comfortable if they say, oh yeah, I went to Leeds Uni, or I live in Wales. And then you kind of can have some sort of like kind of conversation which maybe will make you feel a bit more comfortable before you start answering those interview questions. So that is my cheeky tip.
But it will also probably stick in their head because it's a common ground, and it'll make them secretly like you more.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a question here as well about, we touched on lockdown and what you can do, and you mentioned how good LinkedIn would be at this time. But someone else has said, do you have any recommendations for any training opportunities or skills to work on if we're interested in becoming a talent manager? Anything other than reading up and doing your research?
I've never done any specific kind of training, but so I wouldn't really be able to advise on any kind of specific training courses you can do. One thing that would be very beneficial, and I don't know if they do it anymore actually, but if you look on the ASA, which is the Advertising Standards Agency, who basically vet all ads that go out, I'm sure they do occasionally do free training courses on kind of what their job is all about, and it's incredibly important to understand the ASA, because essentially what that is when you put an Instagram ad out, you need to disclaim to the person who's viewing the ad that it's an advertisement before they've consumed the content. So that's it in its simplest form, but it's obviously a lot more complex than that. So, and I have done a free course with them before, so have a look on their website and see if there is anything on there. But in terms of kind of suggesting other other courses, I wouldn't be able to because I've never done them myself.
But that's also quite reassuring in itself, in terms of people not to panic about finding courses or training, because you can get where you are without having to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I think the key thing is, what I'd be looking for from an interview candidate is that they had done their research, they knew about Gleam, and they had an opinion on the industry. So not just they knew about it, they had an opinion.
Brilliant. Someone said, with so many things going on, how do you plan and prioritize your work? Which is a really good question, because I feel like in terms of your line of work, you'd have to have some major organizational skills.
Yeah, I mean, organization is really important to me, and I think the key thing is my diary. Like, my diary rules my life, like, obviously, but it's kind of, I make sure that I time block out everything, and by time blocking I mean, so I'll know when all my calls are, and I'll have color coded my calls, and then I'll time block projects so people can't book calls in my diary, because then I'll have calls all day and I won't be able to work. So I'll block out times for projects to make sure I'm working evenly across my projects. And then I'll block time in for myself as well. So I'll block time in for, I don't know, getting an admin task done, returning a parcel, or exercising, or calling my mum, or calling my family. Just making sure that you're looking after yourself, as well as making sure that you're being productive.
Because it's like a 24-hour job, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be. It can be, but yeah, that's the thing. It's about managing that and just making sure that you are spending time on yourself, and you blocked time in to spend on yourself as well.
You are just as important as one of your clients.
Exactly.
I've got one here. It's quite a big question, so you have to listen carefully. If you had someone who was starting out with social media and wanted to use it, not as an influencer per se, but use it to help market a business, Grace uses her following to help grow her own brands, for example, Tyler. rather than using it for ads. What advice would you give someone who's starting out and wants to get to a point where they can grow businesses like Grace? Love everything you guys do, by the way. I think it's absolutely incredible.
Oh, thank you so much. So that was a big question. I think
the business side of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the key thing is first of all knowing where you want to be and what are you really trying to achieve from growing this following, and also that is going back to that messaging. What is your USP? Do you know it like the back of your hand? Do you have statements to show what sets you apart and your brand apart from other brands? So, for example, with Tala, we use the sustainability facts. Is there something like that that you can use to enhance that and show what makes you different? Then being really kind of like the thing that people love to see from brands is personality. So people, like, for example, we did Tala Takeover the other day, and people loved finding out about who's behind the brand, like other than Grace. And they've also loved finding out about the models that we work with and what's the story behind them, because really people care about the brand story more than obviously they care about how good the products are, but that's kind of what you're trying to get across in your digital marketing strategy, is the brand story. So figuring out what that is, and then posting regularly, posting video content, using all the different platforms, and so like using polls, using questions, using gifts, and using your community to inform what you're doing. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a...
That is brilliant, because I feel like a lot of those functions maybe on Instagram stories, you don't use them all.
Yeah.
Maybe you put a GIF in, but you might not ever do a poll or try and speak to your audience in that way.
That's such a great way to facilitate that relationship.
Exactly. And if you have your Instagram set up or other social medias as a business, you can see the insights. And what would you say about that? Is it important to actually take note of those? And if you're seeing that you're getting more followers at 9 p.m, post at 9 p.m, or just do your own thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you definitely look at when your followers are online, and use the background information as much as you can. But really what you want to be doing is posting regularly. So posting 3 times a day if you can, 4 times a day, because that's just going to up your exposure and reach.
Is that for Instagram stories, or is that as like posts?
So Instagram stories, we'd recommend around 5 to 7 story frames per experience. So that would be like if you were posting an event, or if you were attending an event, or whatever it might be per experience. And then grid posts, it's essentially just as many as you can per day.
Okay, brilliant. That's really helpful for me. So chat now about your actual talent management position. So someone has said, as a talent manager, what is your management style?
Oh God, I'd have to ask Grace that. I'm not sure. I like to think I'm very evidence-based. So like normally if I'm presenting something to one of the talent, there'll be a reason for it. I'm not just kind of saying, you should do this because I want you to. I'll have like a long list of reasons about what I think is going to happen in the future and why I think this is a good decision now. And really collaborative, because ultimately, like, I've worked with them all for years and they're all ultimately my friends, as well as colleagues. So yeah, really collaborative, but also very evidence-based, is probably how I would say I work.
So you come into them with the information?
Yeah, I'll present my argument as to why I think we should do something, and then collaborate with them. If they think, yeah, okay, this is such a good idea, but maybe let's do it like this, then I'm like, okay, great, because they're coming to me with all the insight from their audience, and they know their audience better than anyone. So it's working together to find that sweet spot.
We're going to go for a couple more questions, and then if anyone has asked anything that we haven't answered, you're going to do that for us, aren't you, Verity?
Yeah, I'm happy to ask any more.
Right, so let's go for this top one. Has the always on mentality for the job had any implications on your mental health? So it's quite a personal question, but obviously, how do you manage that? Because I suppose it could get a bit overwhelming.
I guess I think the job is very stressful, and that's something I went into knowingly. But it's just making sure that I do have a work phone and a personal phone. So if ever I'm feeling, a little bit not not feeling myself, I have the opportunity to put my work phone down, leave it somewhere else. And I will do that if I need to, because ultimately I have an amazing team at Gleam and I know that they'll just contact me on my personal phone if I'm desperately needed. So there are things that you can do to stop that being a problem. So yeah, just making sure you have digital downtime, and being conscious of if you are kind of feeling a bit stressed, and making sure to go out for a walk at lunch if that's how you're feeling. I'm always really conscious that if I'm starting to feel like I've got a bit too much on, I'll literally just take a 20-minute walk to kind of take my mind off it a little bit, because then I'll always come back feeling so much more refreshed.
It's just about understanding and listening to what your own needs, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to go for one more question. I think it's quite a good one to end with. What's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self career-wise?
I think I would probably say you're always I feel like you're always going to feel nervous. That's not something that goes away. I think no matter how senior you are, if you're speaking to a room of people or you're presenting something that you put together and it feels very personal to you, you're always going to feel nervous. So learn to kind of channel those nerves if you can, and just let them happen, because they're nothing to be ashamed of. And you're no different to anyone else just for feeling nervous. So yeah, that's probably the key piece of advice. And I'm still kind of trying to tell myself that now.
So use the nerves to your advantage and act even if you don't feel it.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really interesting to learn about your role and how you went about getting there. As I said previously, if there's any questions that anyone's asked and we haven't answered them, Verity will be doing that for us. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And for everyone who has tuned in today, just a reminder that we are raising money for the Children's Trust, which is the UK's leading charity for children with brain injury. They help to rehabilitate children with brain injuries to help them lead a normal life. So if you want to donate, you can do so via the link on your screen right now. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll be talking to Ben Duffy, as he'll be giving us a look into the world of commercial sports photography. So if you want to join that one, make sure you register and tell your friends and family. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Verity.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.